The concept of human sexuality. Let's speak about human sexuality is to open a door into one of the most profound and complex aspects of human existence. Sexuality is not merely a biological function aimed at reproduction, rather it represents a multidimensional phenomenon involving desire, pleasure, identity, symbolism, morality, and power. Across history, sexuality has been shaped, celebrated, suppressed, popularized, and redefined according to the values of each society. It has been seen as sacred in some cultures, sinful in others, or as an object of scientific inquiry in modern times. The study of sexuality across time reveals more than erotic practices themselves. It sheds light on how humanity conceives of life, death, reproduction, and social order. The historical evolution of sexuality reveals the dynamic relationship between biology and culture, while sexual drives arises from the body. Its meaning and acceptable forms are determined by religion, politics, philosophy, economics, and now digital technologies. This first chapter provides a panoramic exploration of the history and evolution of the concept of sexuality, beginning with primitive societies and moving through ancient civilizations, religions, traditions, the rise of modern science, and the transformations of the 20th and 21st centuries. The goal is not only to trace chronology, but also to highlight the symbolic frameworks that have made sexuality a mirror of life complexity. The earliest expression of sexuality among human groups were inseparable from the struggle from survival. Fertility was essential to ensure the continuity of tribes, and sexual acts were often interpreted, interpreted as cosmic events rather than private encounters. Archaeological evidence such as the Venus figurines of the Upper Paleolithic small stories with exaggerated breast hips suggest that sexual imagery was deeply tied to fertility cults. These figurines were likely used as ritual objects. In many hunter-gatherer societies, sexuality was integrated into rituals associated with planting, harvest, or seasonal cycles. Sexual activity could be considered a form of sympathetic magic by imitating fertility in the human body. The trial involved fertility in land and animals. Indeed, in this context, Sexuality was communal, symbolic, and spiritual rather than individualized. It's important to note that in such societies there was little distinction between what modern society calls sexual and religious. The erotic was not yet marginalized or suppressed, it was embedded in the sacred order of the cosmos. As complex civilizations emerged, sexuality acquired new social, political, and cultural dimensions. In Mesopotamia, in Sumerian and Babylonian societies, sacred prostitution in temples was practiced as a ritual of fertility. Sexual union was considered a reenactment of divine creation. Here, sexuality retained its sacred quality, but was institutionalized under priestly authority. Sexual imagery appeared in papyri and artwork. Myths often ties gods to acts of creation involving sexual acts. Pharaohs, virility, symbolize political power. Blending the erotic was dynastic continuity. In Greece, sexuality became an object of philosophical reflection. Greek culture did not restrict erotic desire or heterosexual reproduction. Practices such as pederasty and bisexuality were integrated into education and mentorship system. Thus, they were also stratified by power and social roles. Plato, in his dialogues, described eros not only a physical desire, but as a pathway toward beauty and truth. In Rome culture embraced sexuality as a pleasure and power. Erotic poetry, brothels, and public spectacles despite sex as a part of everyday life. At the same time, Roman moral codes emphasize moderation and civic responsibility, creating tensions between indulgence and discipline. True, these examples were observed at a transition. Sexuality was no longer purely ritual, but also philosophical, political, and aesthetic. Desire was both celebrated and regulated. Sexuality and religion, the rise of control and taboo, with the emergence and expansion of monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, sexuality underwent a profound shift. This tradition emphasized order, discipline, and the sanctification family of family life. Sexual pleasure was subordinated to reproduction, virginity, chastity, and fidelity were exalted as virtues. Non-reproductive sexual practices were condemned as sinful. In medieval Christianity, for example, the church constructed a moral framework that redefined sexuality primarily in terms of sin and virtue. Theologians such as Austin and Thomas Aquinas wrote extensively on the regulation of the sexual desire. Pleasure, for its own sake, was seen as dangerous of the soul. Yes, beneath the moral rigidity, sexual continues to surface in hidden ways. Erotic literature circulated clandestinely. Carnival festivities allowed temporary transgression, and popular folklore preserved fertility rituals. Thus, the repression of the sexuality pronounced not its disappearance, but its consummation and transformation. Renaissance marked a return of the body as an object of artistic admiration and scientific study. Nude painting and sculptures present the human form not as sinful, but as a beautiful and divine. Artists such as Michelangelo and Botticelli celebrated the sensuality of the human figure. Medical advance also influenced perception of the sexuality. Anatomical study revealed that complexity of reproductive organs helping separate sexuality from solely religions of moral discourse, while the church still sought to regulate sexual conduct. The discovery of the classic text and flourishing of our challenge restrictive views. Behaviors outside heterosexual reproductive norms were seen as medical problems to be diagnosed and treated. Science in this sense replaced religion as the main regulatory discourse over sexuality. The invention of the contraceptive pills separated sexual activity from reproduction, allowing greater autonomy for women. The feminist movement questioned the double standard of sexual morality and demanded recognition of female pleasure, gay and lesbian rights. Movements challenged the medication and and criminalization of the same-sex desire. The adult entertainment industry expanded rapidly, making pornography a mainstream product. The sexual revolution redefined sexuality as a field of personal freedom and political struggle. What had been taboo and pathologized became, in some circles, a symbol of liberation. On one hand, it has become hypervisible through digital technologies, pornography, dating apps, and social networks expose erotic life in unprecedented ways. On the other hand, individuals also experience sexuality in intensely private, intimate, intimate, and sometimes secretive forms. The sex industry, now globalized, turns intimacy into commodity. Conclusion: the concept of human sexuality has never been static. It has shifted from sacred ritual to philosophical reflection, from religions provision to scientific classification, from political struggle to digital hypervisibility. Understanding this history is essential to conte- contextualize contemporary phenomena such as paraphilias and pornography, which are not isolated deviations but part of a long and complex trajectory of human attempts to make sense of desire. Sexuality, in the end, is not only about the body, it is about the meanings we assign to it, the stories we tell about it, and the rules we establish to govern it. The study sexuality is not study human itself.